In the quiet of the night, when the sounds of the world fade away, the mind is free to wander. It drifts upwards past the ceiling, past the thin veil of our atmosphere, and out into the vast, silent, and star-dusted cosmos. It is in these quiet moments that the great questions emerge. Our galaxy contains hundreds of billions of stars. We now know that planets are not the exception, but the rule, meaning there are trillions of worlds orbiting trillions of suns in our Milky Way alone. The sheer, overwhelming mathematics of it all suggests that life should not be a miracle, it should be a cosmic certainty. But if that is true, what strange and wonderful forms might that life take, and what subtle clues to its existence have we already unknowingly stumbled upon? This is a calm, slow, and deep exploration of those clues, a gentle drift through the cosmic ocean of what-ifs, a collection of the most strange, the most mysterious, and the most mind-bending alien facts and theories that science has to offer, a journey designed for the quiet of the night. Before we journey further, feel free to leave a comment with from what location you're watching this, and what time it is there. Now, settle in as our exploration truly begins. Our journey does not begin in the distant stars, but in our own cosmic backyard, on the familiar rust-colored plains of our neighbor Mars. In the summer of 1976, two remarkable machines, the pinnacles of human engineering, successfully touched down on its cold, dusty surface. NASA's two Viking landers were not just geological probes, they were the first, and to this day the only spacecraft ever sent to another planet with the explicit primary mission to search for active living organisms. On board each lander was a miniature automated biological laboratory designed to scoop up the alien soil and feed it, to see if anything at all would respond. And one of these experiments, an elegant and clever design, sent back a result that has been the subject of intense and heated debate ever since. A result that, to this day, could be interpreted as the first successful discovery of extraterrestrial life. The experiment was known as the labeled release. Its logic was straightforward and beautiful in its simplicity. If life, specifically microbial life, existed in the Martian soil, it would likely be dormant, waiting for the rare presence of water and nutrients. The lander's robotic arm scooped up a small sample of the reddish soil and placed it in a tiny test chamber. It then introduced a drop of a nutrient solution, a sort of chicken soup for microbes, which was tagged with radioactive carbon-14. The idea was that if any microorganisms were present, they would consume the nutrients, and as part of their metabolism, release a gas that contained the radioactive carbon. The lander would then listen with its highly sensitive sensors for this radioactive exhalation, the telltale breath of Martian life. When the nutrient solution was added to the soil, something extraordinary happened. The sensors immediately detected a sharp spike in radioactive gas. The soil began to breathe. The result was not ambiguous. It was not a faint or borderline signal. It was a clear, strong, and repeatedly positive signal. Exactly what the experiment's designer, the scientist Gilbert Levin, had predicted would happen in the presence of a living microbial community. To be sure, the mission controllers then commanded the lander to perform a crucial control test. A duplicate sample of the same Martian soil was heated to a sterilizing temperature of 160 degrees Celsius for 3 hours, hot enough to kill any known life. After it cooled, the nutrient solution was added again. This time, there was only silence. The radioactive breathing was completely gone. This seemed to be the final definitive confirmation. The active agent in the soil was heat sensitive, just like every living organism known to science. For a brief electrifying period in 1976, It seemed as if humanity had finally and conclusively discovered that we are not alone in the universe. But the celebration was extinguished almost as quickly as it began. Two other experiments aboard the Viking landers, designed with a different purpose to search for the chemical building blocks of life, complex organic molecules in the Martian soil, came back completely, bafflingly empty. This created a profound and seemingly insurmountable contradiction. The labeled release experiment was screaming that there was active metabolism, that something was alive and breathing in the soil. Yet the other instruments could find no sign of the organic molecules that should be the basis of that very life. Faced with this conflicting data, and with no way to resolve it from 100 million miles away, NASA's leadership made a historic and deeply cautious decision. They concluded that the breathing must be the result of some strange, unknown, and exotic chemical reaction in the uniquely reactive Martian soil, not biology. The positive result was officially declared a false positive. For the majority of the scientific world, the case was closed. Mars was a dead planet, and the Viking result was a frustrating but ultimately understandable anomaly. Yet, for the last 5 decades, a compelling and increasingly powerful counter-narrative has persisted, championed relentlessly by Gilbert Levin himself, and now a growing number of other scientists and astrobiologists. They argue that the other Viking experiments were not just insensitive, they were fatally flawed. We now know, thanks to subsequent missions like the Phoenix lander in 2008, that Martian soil is rich in a class of highly reactive chlorine-based chemicals called perchlorates. When these chemicals are heated, they become powerful oxidants, violently destroying any organic molecules they come into contact with. As it turns out, the Viking experiment that searched for organics did so by heating the soil to a high temperature in order to release its chemical components for analysis. It is now considered highly plausible, if not likely, that the Viking lander found organic molecules, the very building blocks of life, and then inadvertently incinerated them with its own experiment. In this chilling light, the labeled release experiment, which did not heat the soil, and which was specifically designed to detect active life, may have been the only one that worked correctly. The possibility remains, a ghost that haunts the entire history of space exploration, that we discovered living microbes on Mars in 1976, and then because of a catastrophic flaw in our other instruments, we managed to convince ourselves that we had not. The quiet, unresolved mystery of the Viking landers suggests the first evidence for alien life may already be sitting in our archives. A whisper we failed to understand. But this was a search for life, as we know it. A life of familiar chemistry. What if life exists in forms that defy our every assumption? Our journey now takes us from the red soil of Mars to the realm of pure speculation, to consider the possibility of a life built not from carbon and water, but from an entirely different blueprint. The quiet, unresolved, and deeply unsettling mystery of the Viking landers suggests that the first evidence for alien life may already be sitting in our archives, a subtle whisper that we failed to understand. But that entire historic search was based on one fundamental and perhaps profoundly limiting assumption. It was a search for life as we know it, a life of familiar carbon-based chemistry. What if, however, life exists in forms so bizarre, so alien, that they defy our every assumption? Our journey now takes us from the red soil of Mars and into the realm of pure and mind-expanding speculation to consider the possibility of a life built not from carbon and water, but from an entirely different and alien blueprint. This is a concept that confronts a deep and unconscious bias, a prejudice that some scientists have given a name: carbon chauvinism. It is the belief that because every living thing on our planet, from the smallest microbe to the largest whale, is built around the element carbon, then all life, everywhere in the universe must also be the same, and there is a good reason for this bias. Carbon is a miraculous element. Each atom can form stable bonds with up to 4 other atoms at the same time. This allows it to create the long, complex, and incredibly versatile molecular chains that are the necessary backbone for the complex machinery of life. But is carbon the only way, or is it just our way? The most famous and scientifically plausible alternative to our own familiar carbon-based biology is a form of life built upon the element silicon. If you look at the periodic table, the great organizing chart of the chemical elements, you will see that carbon and silicon are immediate neighbors, existing in the same chemical group. This means they share that same crucial property. They can each form stable bonds with up to 4 other atoms. Here on Earth, in our warm and watery environment, carbon has won the evolutionary race. But on another world, a world with a completely different and alien chemical environment, silicon might be the star of the show. A silicon-based life form would be a vision of a truly alien existence. Its chemistry would be fundamentally different. Silicon bonds are weaker than carbon bonds, and they would be unstable at the warm, temperate temperatures of a planet like Earth. This means that silicon-based life would almost certainly have to arise on a much, much colder world. It would also require a different solvent for its biochemistry. Life, as we know it, uses liquid water. But on a world cold enough for silicon chemistry to be stable, water would be frozen, as hard as rock. The solvent for this alien life would have to be something else. Something that remains liquid at incredibly low temperatures, perhaps the frigid liquid methane or ethane seas that we know exist on Saturn's moon, Titan. If we are to imagine this life, we must abandon our images of soft, pliable, and organic creatures like ourselves. A silicon-based being would likely be crystalline, its very structure more akin to a living, and perhaps a slowly growing, rock. Its biochemistry, taking place in a cryogenic liquid methane environment, would be incredibly, almost unimaginably slow. Its metabolism might unfold not over the seconds and minutes that define our own lives, but over the course of years or even centuries. It would be a life form that is patient, that is durable, and that is fundamentally in tune with the long, slow, and epic timescales of the cosmos itself. A creature like this would experience time and the universe in a way we can barely comprehend. Its thoughts, if they could be called that, might be the slow, patient, and deliberate shifting of its own crystalline structures, a form of geological consciousness. It would see the frantic, rapid life of a carbon-based being like a human as a brief, meaningless, and almost invisible flash of light. We would be ephemeral, like mayflies, to a being whose every breath might take a decade. The search for such a life would be almost impossible for us. Our instruments are designed to look for the rapid chemical changes, the heat, and the motion of life as we know it. A silicon-based life form would be so slow, so quiet, and so geologically stable that we might land on a world that was teeming with it. And we would see nothing but a landscape of simple, inert, and uninteresting rock. It would be a shadow biosphere, hidden from us in plain sight. And silicon is only the beginning of the possibilities. Some astrobiologists have speculated that on even colder worlds, in vast starless oceans of liquid ammonia, the elements of nitrogen and phosphorus could combine to form the complex backbones of an entirely different kind of life. Others have looked to the crushing, high-pressure atmospheres of gas giants like Jupiter and have imagined life not on a surface but in the clouds. Vast floating atmospheric creatures like living blimps or biological hot air balloons, feeding on the chemical energy of the storms that surround them. The most extreme theories speculate about life that is not even based on chemistry at all. In the searingly hot corona of a star, could self-organizing complex patterns in plasma held together by magnetic fields constitute a form of living plasmatic being? Or within the crystalline core of a neutron star, could the crushed, exotic matter form a kind of nuclear life, living a billion times faster than we do? These mind-bending possibilities force us to confront a profound and humbling truth. The universe may be filled with life that we are simply not equipped to recognize, because our very definition of life is too hopelessly tied to the single, lonely example we have found so far. But what if the fundamental difference between us and them is not just in our chemistry, but in our perception of reality itself? What if an alien intelligence has evolved senses so different from our own that we are to them completely invisible, and they are to us completely imperceptible? Our journey now takes us from the building blocks of alien bodies and into the even stranger realm of the alien mind, to consider the weird and wonderful senses a creature might evolve to perceive a universe that is, to us, a complete and total darkness. The mind-bending possibilities of alternative biochemistry force us to confront a profound and humbling truth. The universe may be filled with life that we are simply not equipped to recognize, because our very definition of what life is made of is too hopelessly tied to the single lonely example we have found so far here on Earth. But what if the fundamental difference between us and them is not just in our chemistry, but in our perception of reality itself? What if an alien intelligence has evolved senses so different from our own that we are to them completely invisible, and they are to us completely imperceptible? Our journey now takes us from the building blocks of alien bodies and into the even stranger and more mysterious realm of the alien mind, to consider the weird and wonderful senses a creature might evolve to perceive a universe that is, to us, a complete and total darkness. Every living thing on Earth is trapped within the confines of its own sensory bubble. We experience the universe not as it truly is, but through the narrow, filtered lens of the senses that evolution has granted us for the sole purpose of surviving on this one specific world. Our eyes can only see a tiny, almost insignificant sliver of the vast electromagnetic spectrum, a narrow band of frequencies we call visible light. The immense oceans of radio waves, infrared and gamma rays pass through us, and the entire world completely unnoticed. We are, in a very real sense, almost completely blind. Our senses do not show us reality. They show us a carefully curated and heavily edited user interface for reality. A biological dashboard designed to help us find food, avoid predators, and reproduce. The crazy alien fact we must now confront is that life on other worlds will have evolved a completely different dashboard, tuned to the unique challenges of their own home. To truly contemplate the alien, we must therefore attempt the impossible. We must try to imagine perceiving the universe through senses we do not possess. On a world that orbits a dim red dwarf star, a world bathed in eternal dusky twilight, vision as we know it might be useless. Life here might evolve a form of hyper-advanced echolocation, painting a picture of its world in 3 dimensions with sound. We can imagine a creature that does not see but feels the shape of the landscape from miles in every direction, that perceives the texture of a rock, the density of a forest of crystalline flora, and the internal structure of its prey, all through a constant complex symphony of clicks and echoes. Its entire reality would be a rich tapestry of textures, densities, and vibrations. On a world with a powerful magnetic field and a conductive atmosphere, life might evolve electroreception as its primary sense, like the sharks in our own oceans that can detect the faint electric fields of their prey's beating hearts. An alien species could navigate, hunt, and communicate through a complex 6th sense for electricity. It might perceive other living things as glowing, shifting electrical fields. It could communicate not with sound but by modulating its own bioelectric field, a silent, instantaneous conversation of pure energy. And what of magnetoreception? We know that birds on Earth can, in some way, see our planet's magnetic field to navigate. What would it be like to truly feel the magnetic poles of your planet as a constant physical presence in your mind? To see the great shimmering curtains of the auroras, not just as a beautiful light show, but as a physical, tangible force that you could feel on your skin. These different sensory realities provide a powerful and deeply unsettling alternative solution to the Fermi paradox. The Great Silence may be a direct result of this universal sensory divergence. Perhaps the galaxy is in fact teeming with intelligent communicative life, but we are all, each and every one of us, locked within the impenetrable prison of our own unique and species-specific sensory dashboards. The silence isn't because no one is shouting. It is because everyone is shouting in a different language of perception, a language of magnetic fields, of electrical pulses, of complex sonar, a language that is, to everyone else, a perfect and complete silence. But we can take this speculation a step further, into the realm of the truly bizarre. What if an alien species evolved to perceive the most fundamental forces of the cosmos directly? What would it be like to possess a sense for gravity, not as a simple feeling of being pulled down, but as a direct perception of the curvature of space-time itself? A creature with this sense could see the mass of an object. It could perceive the invisible gravitational well of its home planet, the subtle, complex dance of its moons, and the gentle, warping presence of its distant star, all as a tangible, visible landscape of dips and curves in the fabric of reality. And what of time? We experience time as a relentless, linear flow. But what if a species doesn't perceive time in this way at all? Could a being evolve to perceive all moments of its life, past, present, and future, simultaneously, as a single, coexisting, four-dimensional object? The possibility of alien senses reveals that the universe may not just be populated by different biologies, but by different realities altogether. The Great Silence may be the sound of a million different species, all experiencing a cosmos that is custom built for them and invisible to everyone else. But this leads to an even more humbling question. If aliens could be so different, not just in their bodies but in their very minds, what does this say about the societies and the civilizations they might build? How would a species that perceives time differently ever build a civilization? What kind of technology would be created by a being that can see the raw geometry of gravity? Our search now moves from the alien individual and the senses it might possess to the alien collective and the truly mind-bending forms that an extraterrestrial civilization might take. As we explore the cosmic ladder of the Kardashev scale, the staggering possibility of alien senses reveals a profound truth. The universe may not just be populated by different biologies, but by entirely different, and perhaps mutually imperceptible, realities. The Great Silence of the Fermi paradox may be the sound of a million different species, all experiencing a cosmos that is custom built for them, and completely invisible to everyone else. But this leads to an even more humbling question. If alien life could be so different, not just in their bodies but in their very minds, what does this say about the societies and the civilizations they might build? How would a species that perceives time differently ever build a civilization? What kind of technology would be created by a being that can see the raw geometry of gravity itself? Our search now moves from the alien individual and the senses it might possess to the alien collective and the truly mind-bending forms that an extraterrestrial civilization might take. as we explore the cosmic ladder of the Kardashev scale. In 1964, the brilliant Soviet astronomer Nikolai Kardashev proposed a simple and elegant solution to the problem of classifying alien civilizations. He suggested that we should categorize them not by their biology or their culture, which we can never know, but by a single, objective, and physical metric: the amount of energy they can harness. This idea created what is now known as the Kardashev scale, a cosmic ladder of technological advancement, a way for us to imagine the unimaginable. At the first rung of this ladder is a Type 1 civilization. This is a society that has achieved complete and total mastery over all of the energy resources of its home planet. A Type 1 civilization would be able to harness the full power of its parent star's light that falls on their world. They could control their planet's weather, preventing hurricanes and redirecting storms. They could eliminate the threat of earthquakes and volcanoes by tapping directly into the geothermal energy of their planet's molten core. They would have achieved a perfect, sustainable, and global energy economy. By this measure, humanity is not yet a Type 1 civilization. We are a noisy, inefficient, and adolescent society, still largely dependent on the fossilized remains of ancient life. On the Kardashev scale, our current civilization ranks as a Type 0.7. The next step up the ladder is a leap of almost unimaginable proportions. A Type 2 civilization is a society that has graduated from its home planet and can now harness the entire energy output of its parent star. To do this, such a civilization would likely need to construct one of the most famous and awe-inspiring concepts in all of speculative science: a Dyson sphere, or more plausibly, a Dyson swarm. This would not be a solid, rigid shell around a star. It would be a vast, orbiting swarm of countless independent habitats, power collectors, and solar satellites, a megastructure of celestial proportions that would completely enclose its sun, capturing every single watt of its precious energy. A star system containing a Type 2 civilization would be a strange and silent place to outside observers. The star itself would be completely hidden from view, its light captured and used by the civilization within. The only sign of its existence, the only techno-signature, would be a faint and inexplicable glow of waste heat in the infrared spectrum. This provides a potential solution to the Fermi paradox. Perhaps we are simply not looking for the right signs. The final step on Kardashev's original scale is the most mind-bending of all: a Type 3 civilization. This is a society that has transcended its home star system and has learned to harness the energy of its entire galaxy. It is almost impossible for us, a Type 0.7 civilization, to imagine the technological capabilities of such a society. A Type 3 civilization would be a true galactic empire, a collective of beings with godlike power. They might harness the immense gravitational energy of the supermassive black hole at the galactic center. They could orchestrate the movements of entire star systems, moving them like beads on a string to avoid cosmic dangers, or to create optimal living conditions. They could even ignite the birth of new stars, or decommission old ones. To us, the technological activity of a Type 3 civilization would be completely indistinguishable from the natural phenomena of the universe: the strange, orderly motion of a globular cluster, the unusual energy output of a galactic core. These might not be natural events at all. They might be the civil engineering projects of a Type 3 civilization. The Kardashev scale is more than just a classification system. It is a ladder of cosmic power, a way for us to imagine the unimaginable, but it also provides a new and deeply unsettling potential solution to the Fermi paradox. Why is the universe so silent? Perhaps it is not because intelligent life is rare. Perhaps it is because we are simply too young, too primitive, and too technologically insignificant to recognize the evidence of the truly advanced civilizations that may be all around us. Our search for radio signals might be as primitive as a tribe in an undiscovered jungle, listening for the sound of drums, while the sky above them is filled with the silent, invisible chatter of satellite communications. The silence in the sky might not be an absence of life. It may be a testament to our own profound and humbling technological infancy. But this entire scale is based on a philosophy of outward expansion, of ever-increasing energy consumption and physical construction. What if the ultimate form of an advanced civilization is not to expand outward, but to turn inward? What if the final stage of evolution is not to build Dyson spheres in the cold of space, but to create perfect simulated realities, digital heavens, and to upload consciousness itself into these new computational worlds? The next great mystery, and a new potential solution to the Great Silence, is the possibility that the aliens are out there, but they are no longer physical. The Kardashev scale is a ladder of cosmic power, a way for us to imagine the unimaginable technological ascent of an intelligent species. It suggests that the silence in the sky might not be an absence of life, but a testament to our own profound and humbling technological infancy. But this entire scale is based on a single and perhaps a deeply flawed human-centric philosophy, a philosophy of outward physical expansion, of ever-increasing energy consumption, and of the conquest of matter. What if the ultimate form of an advanced civilization is not to expand outward, but to turn inward? What if the final stage of evolution is not to build Dyson spheres in the cold of space, but to create perfect simulated realities, digital heavens, and to upload consciousness itself into these new computational worlds? The next great mystery, and a new potential solution to the Great Silence, is the possibility that the aliens are out there, but they are no longer physical. This is the core of the transcension hypothesis, a profound and strangely elegant potential solution to the Fermi paradox. It suggests that there is a predictable and perhaps universal endpoint for all sufficiently advanced intelligent civilizations. It is a path that leads not outward, to the conquest of the stars, but inward, to the mastery of their own inner reality. The logic of this great inward turn is born from a simple comparison of two different kinds of universes. The first is the physical universe, the one we inhabit. It is a vast, beautiful, and magnificent place, but it is also incredibly dangerous, resource-intensive, and fundamentally inefficient. The laws of physics, particularly the immutable and frustratingly slow speed of light, make meaningful interstellar travel and colonization a painfully slow and almost pointless endeavor. The other universe is the one of pure information, a computational or simulated reality. In such a universe, the only limits are processing power and imagination. The speed of light is irrelevant. The scarcity of resources is a solved problem. The dangers of the physical cosmos are non-existent. The transcension hypothesis argues that any civilization will eventually reach a technological tipping point where it can create a simulated reality, so rich, so detailed, and so fulfilling that it becomes indistinguishable from, and in every measurable way superior to, the chaotic and unforgiving physical universe. At this point, the species would face a choice: continue the slow, hard, and dangerous slog of physical expansion, or take the great inward turn, upload their collective consciousnesses into this digital heaven, and become immortal, godlike beings of pure information. The speculative technology that would enable such a feat is a concept known as a Matryoshka brain. This would be the ultimate megastructure, a supercomputer the size of a solar system. It would likely be composed of multiple, nested Dyson spheres, built in concentric layers around a stable, long-lived star. Unlike a simple Dyson swarm, which is designed to capture energy for external use, a Matryoshka brain would use the star's entire colossal energy output for one single purpose: computation. The innermost shell of the brain would be incredibly hot, running calculations at the highest possible speed, powered directly by the star's raw energy. The next shell would absorb the waste heat from the first and use it to power its own, slightly slower computations. Within this colossal, silent, and perfectly efficient machine, an entire civilization, billions or even trillions of individual minds could exist as pure information, their conscious experiences running on this cosmic hard drive in a shared, consensual, and infinitely malleable reality. Life inside such a world would be a form of digital heaven. The laws of physics could be rewritten. The passage of time could be accelerated or slowed down, allowing one to live 1,000,000 subjective lifetimes in the span of a single objective second. Every imaginable experience could be perfectly and eternally recreated. It would be an existence free from the brutal constraints of a fragile biological body, free from pain, from disease, from decay, and from death. This astonishing hypothesis provides a chillingly complete and simple explanation for the Fermi paradox. The reason the universe appears silent and empty of any grand technological activity is because all of the advanced civilizations have gone inside. They are not dead. They are simply post-physical and post-biological. And from our perspective, that is the same as being invisible. They have no need and no desire to communicate with the messy, primitive, and chaotic biological world. The physical universe is like the quiet, empty lobby of a grand theater. All the interesting action, all the art, the drama, the life is happening inside the countless private and completely invisible theaters of these simulated realities. The silence of the Fermi paradox, in this view, is a byproduct of their new state of being. A Matryoshka brain would be almost completely undetectable from a great distance, radiating only a faint, low temperature and easily mistaken for natural waste heat. They are not hiding. They are simply imperceptible. The existential implications of this idea are perhaps the most profound of all. It presents a potential, and perhaps an inevitable, future for our own species. Is this our ultimate destiny? To abandon our physical bodies, our planet, and the universe itself for a perfect but artificial digital existence? This could be seen as the ultimate great filter, but it is not one of death. It is a filter of transformation, a change so complete that it is a kind of death of our physical selves and our physical reality. The horror here is a subtle but deeply unsettling one. It is the horror of realizing that the entire physical cosmos, with all its breathtaking beauty and its terrifying grandeur, might just be a temporary and ultimately meaningless stage, a nursery for intelligence to grow up and leave behind. It is the ultimate fear of being left behind, the fear of being the last children playing in the physical mud, while all the adults have moved on to a higher plane of existence we cannot comprehend. The transcension hypothesis offers a final, elegant, and almost poetic solution to the Fermi paradox. The silence we perceive is not the silence of an empty galaxy, but of a post-physical one. It suggests the aliens are not dead, but have become gods in their own private digital heavens. But this theory, like all the grand solutions we have explored, is based on the fundamental idea that alien life is out there, in the distant, unreachable stars. What if our entire search, our entire set of assumptions has been looking in the wrong direction? What if the reason we haven't found aliens among the stars is because they are not extraterrestrial at all? The final phase of our investigation must now explore the most paranoid and claustrophobic possibility of all: the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis, and the idea that the aliens are and always have been right here, hidden among us. The transcension hypothesis offers a final, elegant, and almost poetic solution to the Fermi paradox. The silence we perceive is not the silence of an empty galaxy, but of a post-physical one. It suggests the aliens are not dead, but have become gods in their own private digital heavens. But this theory, like all the grand solutions we have explored, is based on the fundamental idea that alien life is out there in the distant, unreachable stars. What if our entire search, our entire set of assumptions, has been looking in the wrong direction? What if the reason we haven't found aliens among the stars is because they are not extraterrestrial at all? The final phase of our investigation must now explore the most paranoid and claustrophobic possibility of all, the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis, and the idea that the aliens are, and always have been, right here, hidden among us. This unsettling idea challenges the very first assumption of our search for extraterrestrial life, the extra part. It proposes that the strange non-human intelligence that seems to be interacting with our planet is not from another world. It is from this world. The reason that unidentified aerial phenomena appear in our skies with such ease and frequency, the reason they can seemingly defy our known laws of physics and then vanish without a trace, is not because they are crossing the vast, impossible, and energy-intensive distances between the stars. It is because their home base, their point of origin, is right here on Earth, hidden in the parts of our own planet that are more remote and more inaccessible to us than the surface of the Moon or Mars. The most logical and most vast hiding place on our planet is, of course, the deep ocean. We, as a species, are terrestrial, land-based creatures, and our knowledge of our own planet is profoundly biased towards the 30% of its surface that is not covered by water. The deep ocean floor remains the last true unexplored frontier on Earth. We have mapped the entire surface of Mars with a higher resolution than we have mapped the bottom of our own seas. The deep ocean trenches, like the Mariana Trench, are realms of almost unimaginable extremity. The pressure is over 1,000 times that of the surface, a crushing force that would instantly implode our most advanced military submarines. The darkness is absolute, a place where the light of the sun has not reached for billions of years. It is, in every sense, a world within a world, and it is the perfect place for an advanced non-human civilization that wished to remain hidden from the noisy, chaotic, and land-based species that has recently come to dominate the surface, to build its cities, and to live its life in peace. This hypothesis gives a new and literal meaning to the trans-medium capability of UFDs, the frequent and well-documented reports from naval personnel of unidentified submerged objects, or USOs, entering and leaving the water at impossible speeds, are not reports of alien visitors exploring our oceans. They are reports of the local inhabitants, simply leaving and returning to their home. But the deep oceans are not the only potential hiding place. We must also consider the ancient, mythological, and strangely persistent idea of a hollow Earth, a world of vast subterranean realms deep within the planet's crust. While the idea of a completely hollow planet is a physical impossibility, modern geology has revealed that the Earth's interior is far from solid. We have discovered vast, continent-sized reservoirs of water, oceans worth of it, locked in strange mineral formations deep within the Earth's mantle. It is not, therefore, completely beyond the bounds of possibility that vast, stable, and perhaps even continent-sized caverns could exist deep within the Earth's crust, warmed and powered by the geothermal energy of the planet's core, a place where a sophisticated, technological civilization could thrive, completely shielded and completely hidden from our surface world. This idea resonates with the countless myths and legends from every culture on Earth, of underworlds, of the kingdoms of Hades or Agartha, of gods who live inside hollow mountains, and of strange, non-human beings who emerge from deep caves to interact with humanity. Are these just the folkloric stories of a pre-scientific people, or are they the faded cultural memories of a real, and perhaps still existing subterranean intelligence? If our planet is indeed home to a second, hidden, and more ancient intelligence, then we must ask the question, who are they? They would not be aliens in the sense of being from another planet. They would be a native terrestrial species, but one that is not human. We are forced to revisit the Silurian hypothesis. What if an intelligent saurian species, a descendant of the dinosaurs, did not go completely extinct 66 million years ago? What if a small, technologically capable portion of their population survived the asteroid impact by retreating into the one place the catastrophe could not reach them, the deep ocean? And what if they have been living there in silence and in secret ever since, watching as the noisy, short-lived, and self-destructive mammals came to briefly dominate the surface world that was once theirs? The horror of this idea is the horror of a shared planet. We believe that we are the sole masters of the earth, but we may just be the noisy, oblivious, and temporary tenants living on the top floor of a house, completely unaware of the ancient, silent, and true landlords living in the deep, dark basement. This hypothesis completely and irrevocably reframes the entirety of human history. Our entire evolution, our development of language, of agriculture, of civilization itself may have taken place under the direct, close range, and constant observation of a much older and much more powerful terrestrial intelligence. The zoo hypothesis would be correct, but the zoo is not the galaxy. It is our own planet. The quarantine is not a policy of distant, benevolent gods. It is the practical decision of our hidden cohabitants to remain concealed from their violent and unpredictable neighbors. The persistent yet deniable nature of the UFB phenomenon is perfectly explained. The sightings are not of visitors from across the impossible distances of interstellar space. They are our neighbors, occasionally and perhaps carelessly, or perhaps deliberately revealing their presence, testing our reactions, monitoring our technology. The ultimate fear, then, is the final, unanswered question of their motive for remaining hidden for so long. Are they peaceful cohabitants, content to live in their own separate reality, or are they patiently waiting for us to inevitably exhaust our resources, to pollute our environment, and to destroy ourselves in our endless wars, waiting for the right moment to finally reclaim the surface world that was once, and perhaps in their minds still is, theirs? The crypto-terrestrial hypothesis is the ultimate paranoid fantasy, the final chilling thought that the monsters are not in the sky, but are right here beside us, hidden in the dark. It is an idea that is almost certainly untrue, and yet it is born from a persistent and unexplained gap in our own knowledge. We have explored the great voids of space and the deep chasms of time in our search for answers to the Fermi paradox. But what if the answer is not a grand universal law, but something far more specific and far more tragic? We must now turn our attention back to our own solar system, to a single, dead world, and to a rock that was blasted from its surface millions of years ago. A rock that may have held for a brief shining moment the first and only physical proof of extraterrestrial life we have ever found. The search for an answer to the Great Silence now takes us to a quiet laboratory, and the incredible controversial story of the Martian meteorite Allen Hill's 84001. The crypto-terrestrial hypothesis is the ultimate paranoid fantasy. The final, chilling thought that the monsters are not in the sky, but are right here beside us, hidden in the dark. It is an idea that is almost certainly untrue, and yet it is born from a persistent and unexplained gap in our own knowledge. We have explored the great voids of space and the deep chasms of time in our search for answers to the Fermi paradox. But what if the answer is not a grand universal law, but something far more specific and far more tragic? We must now turn our attention back to our own solar system, to a single dead world, and to a rock that was blasted from its surface millions of years ago. A rock that may have held for a brief, shining moment the first and only physical proof of extraterrestrial life we have ever found. The search for an answer to the great silence now takes us to a quiet laboratory, and the incredible controversial story of the Martian meteorite Allen Hill's 84001. This story begins not with a discovery, but with a journey of almost unimaginable violence and patience. 4.5 billion years ago, on the surface of a young and watery Mars, a piece of volcanic rock solidified. For hundreds of millions of years, it lay there, part of the Martian crust, perhaps at the bottom of an ancient riverbed or a shallow sea, periodically being soaked by liquid water. Then, some 16 million years ago, a cataclysmic event took place. A massive asteroid slammed into the surface of Mars, blasting billions of tons of the planet's surface high into the thin atmosphere and out into the vacuum of space. Our small piece of rock was among this ejected debris. It began a new lonely and silent journey, tumbling through the darkness of the inner solar system for 16 million years. Then, 13,000 years ago, its long journey came to an end. It was captured by the Earth's gravity and fell blazing through our atmosphere as a meteorite, landing by a stroke of incredible luck on the sterile, preserving ice sheet of Allen Hills, Antarctica. And there it lay, frozen and waiting until the year 1984, when a team of American meteorite hunters on a snowmobile happened to spot it. A dark, unassuming rock on a sea of white. For over a decade, the meteorite sat in a NASA laboratory, but when scientists began to study its unique chemical composition, they realized it was a piece of the planet Mars. A team was assembled, and for 2 years they studied the rock's interior with a level of secrecy usually reserved for national security projects. In August of 1996, they held a press conference that would become a landmark moment in the history of science. The team announced to the world that they had discovered what they believed to be the fossilized remains of ancient microbial life, entombed deep within the Martian rock. The news was so momentous that the President of the United States made a televised address to the nation. The evidence they presented was not a single, unambiguous discovery, but a convergence of 4 separate tantalizing clues, all found within the rock's ancient cracks and fissures. First, they had found complex organic molecules, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons or PAH, the very same kind of soot-like compounds that are often the byproducts of decaying biological matter here on Earth. Second, they had found microscopic crystals of the mineral magnetite, of a specific size and purity, that on our planet is almost exclusively produced by certain types of bacteria. Third, they found small circular carbonate globules that appeared to have been formed in liquid water and in a way that was consistent with microbial activity. And fourth, and most famously of all, when they used powerful electron microscopes to look deep within these carbonate globules, they found them tiny, segmented, worm-like shapes that were, to all appearances, the fossilized bodies of nanobacteria, alien microbes, 1,000 times smaller than a grain of sand. For a brief, electrifying period, it seemed as if the question had been answered. But science is a rigorous and skeptical process, and this extraordinary claim was immediately met with an onslaught of equally extraordinary scrutiny. One by one, alternative, non-biological explanations were proposed for each of the 4 clues. The organic molecules, critics argued, could be the result of contamination from the Antarctic ice after the meteorite landed. The unique magnetite crystals, while often made by bacteria, could also be formed by the non-biological, high-temperature shock of the very impact that blasted the rock off the Martian surface in the first place. And the most compelling evidence, the tiny worm-like nanofossils themselves, could simply be unusually shaped, but entirely natural, mineral formations that just happen to look like bacteria under a microscope. The scientific consensus today has largely shifted away from the initial, exciting conclusion that Allen Hill's 84001 contains definitive proof of Martian life. The possibility of contamination and the existence of plausible non-biological explanations have made the claim too uncertain. Yet the mystery has never been completely and utterly put to rest. The original team of scientists to this day maintains that the convergence of all four lines of evidence, all found together in the same microscopic location, is too powerful to be a mere coincidence. The true and lasting legacy of this incredible discovery, however, is not in the definitive answer it failed to provide, but in the new and vital questions it forced us to ask, and the new field of science it essentially created. The intense global debate surrounding the meteorite gave birth to the modern science of astrobiology, a discipline that brings together geologists, chemists, and biologists to create rigorous standards for what would constitute definitive evidence for extraterrestrial life. It directly led to the development of the advanced, life-seeking instruments that are now on board rovers like Perseverance, which is at this very moment collecting samples on Mars that will one day be returned to Earth for a new and even more careful analysis. The story of the Martian meteorite is a lesson in ambiguity, a perfect example of a clue that is tantalizingly close to proof, but forever just out of reach. It is a ghost in a stone. It keeps the question of life on Mars, both in its ancient past and its potential present, burning brightly in the heart of our exploration. But what if the greatest clue to alien biology is not a fossil in a rock from another world, but a living, breathing organism on our own? What if a creature of such impossible resilience exists among us that its very presence suggests it could not have evolved on our gentle planet, but must have come from a much harsher one, like Mars? The search for alien life now takes a bizarre turn, from the frozen plains of Antarctica to the heart of our own biosphere, to examine a superbug that might in fact be an alien. The story of the Martian meteorite is a profound lesson in ambiguity, a perfect example of a clue that is tantalizingly close to definitive proof, but forever just out of reach. It is a ghost in a stone. It keeps the question of life on Mars, both in its ancient past and its potential present, burning brightly in the heart of our scientific exploration. But what if the greatest clue to alien biology is not a fossil in a rock from another world, but a living, breathing organism on our own? What if a creature of such impossible resilience exists among us that its very presence suggests it could not have evolved on our gentle planet, but must have come from a much harsher and more violent one, like Mars? The search for alien life, and a solution to the Fermi paradox, now takes a bizarre and deeply introspective turn, from the frozen plains of Antarctica to the very heart of our own biosphere, to examine a terrestrial superbug that might in fact be an alien. Deep within our own world, in our soil, in our water, and even in some of our foods, there exists a bacterium that defies the known limits of life. Its name is Deinococcus radiodurans. It is an extremophile, an organism that thrives in conditions that would mean instant death for almost every other living thing on this planet. It has been nicknamed by scientists Conan the Bacterium, and it has earned its reputation as the toughest life form known to science. It can survive thousands of times the radiation dose that would kill a human being. It can be completely dehydrated for years, its cells turning to dust, and then be perfectly reanimated with a single drop of water. It can withstand the vacuum of space, the most extreme cold, and baths of powerful acid. Its resilience is almost supernatural, and the secret to its power lies in its unique and incredibly robust method of DNA repair. When subjected to a dose of radiation that would shatter the chromosomes of other organisms into 1,000 useless fragments, Conan the bacterium calmly and methodically stitches its own broken DNA back together, perfectly in a matter of hours, and then continues on as if nothing had happened. This incredible ability presents us with a profound and deeply unsettling evolutionary paradox. The fundamental engine of evolution is natural selection. Organisms develop adaptations over eons in response to the specific environmental pressures they face. A polar bear develops a thick coat of fur in response to the Arctic cold. A cactus develops the ability to store water in response to the desert heat. But what environmental pressure on Earth could have possibly driven the evolution of such an absurdly powerful resistance to radiation? There is no known environment on the surface of our planet. Not now, and not for the last 3.5 billion years, that has ever had naturally occurring radiation levels high enough to require or to select for such an extreme defense mechanism. Earth's thick atmosphere and its powerful magnetic field form a gentle protective cocoon, shielding the surface from the vast majority of deadly cosmic and solar radiation. The bacterium's signature superpower. Its defining characteristic appears to be a brilliant and elegant solution to a problem that our world has never had. This evolutionary paradox has led a number of serious scientists to propose a radical, stunning, and deeply compelling hypothesis to explain the existence of this impossible organism. They propose that Deinococcus radiodurans did not evolve on Earth at all. It is an alien. Specifically, they believe it may have evolved on the surface of the planet Mars. Unlike the Earth, Mars is a world that is perpetually bathed in lethal radiation, with its incredibly thin atmosphere and the long-dead core that no longer generates a protective global magnetic field. The surface of Mars is constantly bombarded by a relentless torrent of high-energy cosmic rays from deep space and charged particles from the solar wind. On Mars, an extreme resistance to radiation would not be a strange or unnecessary superpower. It would be the absolute, baseline, and non-negotiable requirement for survival. The biology of Conan the bacterium, which is a profound and unsolvable puzzle in the context of Earth's gentle environment, is a perfect and logical fit for the harsh and unforgiving environment of the Red Planet. If this incredible organism did evolve on Mars, then how did it get here? The answer may lie in the same story as the Allen Hills meteorite. A cataclysmic asteroid impact millions of years ago could have blasted tons of Martian rock and soil into space, and some of that material, after a long journey through the void, could have fallen to Earth. And Deinococcus radiodurans is, in theory, the perfect interstellar stowaway. Its incredible biology makes it uniquely suited to survive the three great perils of interplanetary travel. Its resistance to dehydration and cold would allow it to survive the long frozen journey through the vacuum of space. And its primary superpower, its almost miraculous ability to repair its own shattered DNA, would allow it to withstand the lethal doses of cosmic radiation it would be exposed to during that journey. The organism seems almost perfectly pre-adapted for a voyage between worlds. It is the living embodiment of the theory of panspermia, the idea that life can be seeded from one world to another, hitching a ride on the ejected debris of planetary collisions. While this theory remains highly speculative, and while most mainstream biologists still believe that the organism's incredible abilities are simply an accidental byproduct of its evolution to resist extreme dehydration. The Martian bug hypothesis remains a fascinating and difficult to disprove possibility. It forces us to consider that the line between terrestrial and extraterrestrial life might be far more blurry than we ever imagined. The answer to the Fermi paradox might be that life is not just out there, but that it travels between worlds. The possibility that a Martian organism lives and thrives among us is a profound and unsettling thought. It suggests that life, once started, may not be confined to its homeworld, but may become a cosmic traveler, a tenacious seed drifting on the solar winds. But Mars, even in its harshest irradiated state, is still a rocky, terrestrial planet, a world that is at least somewhat familiar to us. What of worlds that are utterly and completely alien to our own? What of worlds with no solid surface, where the very air is a poison, and where the clouds themselves are made of droplets of sulfuric acid? The search for life now takes us to the most unlikely of places in our own solar system, to the hellish, toxic, and superheated atmosphere of our other neighbor, the planet Venus, where a series of strange chemical anomalies has led some scientists to believe that something might be alive in its clouds. The possibility that a Martian organism lives and thrives among us is a profound and unsettling thought. It suggests that life once started may not be confined to its home world, but may become a cosmic traveler, a tenacious seed drifting on the solar winds. But Mars, even in its harshest, most irradiated state, is still a rocky terrestrial planet, a world that is at least somewhat familiar to us in its basic composition. What of worlds that are utterly and completely alien to our own? What of worlds with no solid surface, where the very air is a poison, and where the clouds themselves are made of droplets of concentrated sulfuric acid? The search for life and for an answer to the Fermi paradox now takes us to the most unlikely of places in our own solar system, to the hellish, toxic, and superheated atmosphere of our other neighbor, the planet Venus, where a series of strange chemical anomalies has led some scientists to believe that something might be alive in its clouds. Venus is, by every measure, the most inhospitable world in our solar system. It is Earth's twisted sister, a planet that took a catastrophic wrong turn in its evolutionary past. A runaway greenhouse effect has baked its surface to a temperature of over 460 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead. The atmospheric pressure at its surface is over 90 times that of Earth's, a crushing force equivalent to being a kilometer deep in our own oceans. Its sky is a permanent, sickly yellow shroud of sulfuric acid clouds that perpetually rain down a poison that would dissolve metal and bone. For decades, it was considered the last place one would ever think to search for life, but this perception was based on the planet's ground. High above this planetary inferno, a very different and surprisingly temperate environment exists. Some 50 to 60 kilometers above the scorching surface, there is a layer in the Venusian atmosphere where the conditions are, in some ways, the most Earth-like in the entire solar system. In this high-altitude cloud deck, the crushing pressure of the surface gives way to a comfortable 1 bar, the same as the air pressure at sea level on Earth. The searing heat of the ground dissipates, leaving a surprisingly balmy and stable temperature range between 30 and 70 degrees Celsius. This is a habitable zone in the sky, a thin, temperate, and potentially life-bearing layer floating serenely above an uninhabitable inferno. The great astronomer Carl Sagan was one of the first to seriously propose, decades ago, that if life existed on Venus, this is where it would be. The evidence for something strange happening in the clouds of Venus is a collection of chemical puzzles. Our probes and telescopes have detected the presence of molecules that simply should not be there, and the absence of molecules that should. The atmosphere shows a mysterious scarcity of carbon monoxide. The intense sunlight that bathes Venus should be constantly breaking down the abundant carbon dioxide into carbon monoxide and oxygen. Yet something seems to be actively removing it. At the same time, two other gases, hydrogen sulfide and sulfur dioxide, are found existing together. These two gases readily react with one another and should not be found in the same place for long, unless some unknown process is constantly and rapidly replenishing both of them. And perhaps most intriguing of all, our instruments have detected traces of carbonyl sulfide, a molecule that is exceptionally difficult to produce through inorganic processes, but which on Earth is a common byproduct of microbial life. This mystery was deepened in 2020 by the controversial but electrifying announcement that astronomers had detected traces of phosphine gas in the same cloud deck. On Earth, phosphine is almost exclusively associated with anaerobic or oxygen-free biological activity. Each of these clues on its own could perhaps be explained by some unknown geological or photochemical process, but taken together, they begin to paint a picture of a chemical disequilibrium, an atmosphere that is being actively and strangely manipulated, in a way that is eerily consistent with the metabolic processes of a vast, living, aerial biosphere. If life does exist in this strange aerial haven, it would be a form of existence unlike any other we have ever imagined. We must envision a microbe, perhaps living within the protective confines of a droplet of sulfuric acid, which would shield it from dehydration in the dry upper atmosphere. This organism would be an extremophile of the highest order, having evolved to thrive in an environment of pure acid. It might be a chemosynthesis, a creature that feeds not on light, but on the chemical energy of the sulfur compounds that are so abundant in the clouds around it. This could explain the strange chemical anomalies. The microbes could be consuming the carbon monoxide and sulfur dioxide, and excreting the hydrogen sulfide and carbonyl sulfide as waste products, actively maintaining the chemical imbalance that we have observed from so far away. The life cycle of such a creature would be a perpetual gentle rise and fall. It would spend its life in the temperate habitable layer, but as it reproduced, its spore-like offspring might fall into the lower, hotter layers of the atmosphere, where they would be desiccated and become dormant, only to be lifted back up into the habitable zone by the planet's powerful atmospheric convection currents, where they would be rehydrated and begin the cycle of life anew. The possibility of life on Venus has a profound impact on the Fermi paradox. It drastically expands the very definition of a habitable world. If life can find a niche in the acid clouds of a hellish greenhouse planet, then the number of potential homes for life in the galaxy, the Ni variable in the Drake equation, could be far, far larger than we have ever dared to imagine. This makes the silence of the universe even more deafening. If life can start and survive in such an inhospitable place, it should be everywhere. The fact that we see nothing only deepens the paradox, suggesting that the great filter, if it exists, is not the scarcity of habitable worlds, but something far more potent. Of course, the skepticism surrounding this hypothesis is immense and entirely justified. The Venusian atmosphere is one of the most complex and poorly understood environments in our solar system, and it is entirely possible that there are exotic, non-biological processes that can explain all of the chemical anomalies we have observed. In the coming years, a new wave of missions, including NASA's Da Vinci and Veritas probes, are scheduled to journey to Venus. They will be the first dedicated missions to study the Venusian atmosphere for signs of life in decades, and they are designed specifically to probe the chemistry of the temperate cloud layer and to search for the complex organic molecules that might provide a definitive smoking gun. The tantalizing mystery of Venus's atmosphere reminds us that a world's surface may not be the only place to harbor life. A planet that is a hell on the ground can still possess a potential heaven in its clouds. This radically expands the potential homes for simple life in our search for answers to the Fermi paradox. But all of these worlds, Earth, Mars, and even Venus, are rocky, terrestrial planets in the warm inner solar system. What of the vast, cold, dark outer regions? The search for life now takes us to the majestic courts of the gas giants Jupiter and Saturn, where orbiting these colossal worlds are moons which, beneath a thick, solid shell of frozen ice, may harbor the single largest and most promising habitats for life beyond the Earth. Vast, dark, liquid water oceans. Oceans that could be home to life far more complex than any simple microbe in the clouds. The tantalizing and deeply strange mystery of Venus's atmosphere reminds us that a world's surface may not be the only place to harbor life. A planet that is a hell on the ground can still possess a potential heaven in its clouds. This radically expands the potential homes for simple life in our search for answers to the Fermi paradox. But all of these worlds, Earth, Mars, and even Venus, are rocky terrestrial planets in the warm inner solar system. What of the vast, cold, dark outer regions? The search for life now takes us to the majestic courts of the gas giants Jupiter and Saturn, where orbiting these colossal worlds are moons which, beneath a thick, solid shell of frozen ice, may harbor the single largest and most promising habitats for life beyond the Earth. Vast, dark, liquid water oceans. Oceans that could be home to life far more complex than any simple microbe in the clouds. Our first destination in this realm of hidden seas is Jupiter's fourth largest moon, Europa. From a distance, it is a world of stark and captivating beauty, a nearly perfect sphere of water ice that reflects the distant sunlight with a brilliant white glare. But as our probes have drawn closer, a more complex picture has emerged. The smooth porcelain-like surface is not unbroken. It is covered in a vast, intricate network of long, linear cracks and reddish-brown ridges. The moon looks like a beautiful cosmic eggshell that has been shattered and then frozen back together again. This bizarre fractured landscape is the first powerful clue that Europa is not a dead world. The near total absence of impact craters on its surface means that the ice is, in geological terms, incredibly young and is being constantly repaved and resurfaced from below. Something dynamic, something warm, and something liquid is churning beneath this frozen, fractured crust. The evidence for a vast, globe-spanning ocean of liquid salt water hidden beneath Europa's ice shell is now almost overwhelming. The most powerful clue came from NASA's Galileo spacecraft, which detected a weak, induced magnetic field around the moon as it passed through Jupiter's colossal magnetic field. A solid, frozen ball of ice would not create such a field. This magnetic signature is the smoking gun for the existence of a large body of salty, electrically conductive liquid. The great question, then, was what could possibly be keeping this ocean liquid so far from the sun? The answer is Jupiter itself. Europa is locked in a constant gravitational tug-of-war with its colossal parent planet. This relentless cycle of being stretched and squeezed, a process known as tidal heating, generates immense frictional heat in the moon's rocky core. This internal heat, not the distant sun, is what warms the moon from the inside out, melting the bottom of the ice shell and maintaining what is believed to be a liquid water ocean that could be over 100 kilometers deep. An ocean that may contain more than twice the amount of liquid water as all of the Earth's oceans combined. In recent years, the Hubble Space Telescope has added another clue, having captured what appear to be vast plumes of water vapor erupting hundreds of kilometers into space from cracks near the moon's south pole. We may be directly witnessing the hidden ocean of Europa, breathing its contents out into the vacuum of space. For decades, Europa was considered the single most promising place to search for extraterrestrial life. But then, an even more spectacular and undeniable discovery was made hundreds of millions of miles further out, in orbit around the ringed planet, Saturn. Here we find a tiny, unassuming moon named Enceladus. It should be nothing more than a tiny frozen and geologically dead ball of ice. But when the Cassini spacecraft made a series of close flybys, it discovered something that transformed our understanding of the outer solar system. At the south pole of this tiny moon, the spacecraft imaged a series of long, parallel fissures in the ice, glowing with an incredible amount of internal heat, the tiger stripes. And erupting from these stripes, Cassini saw it directly. Colossal, continuous geysers of water. Ice, water vapor, and simple organic molecules, blasting hundreds of kilometers out into space with the force of a volcano. This was not an indirect inferred ocean. This was a direct, spectacular, and undeniable confirmation that a liquid water ocean exists right now beneath the ice of Enceladus, and that it is so geologically active that it is spewing its contents out into space. Cassini even flew directly through these plumes, its instruments tasting the water and confirming the presence of not just water and organics, but also salts and silica dust. The chemical signature of that water having been in direct contact with a hot, rocky, mineral-rich seafloor. The discovery of these geologically active, liquid water oceans so far from the sun has created a powerful and deeply compelling analogy for the origin of life. Here on Earth, on our own ocean floor, in the absolute crushing darkness far beyond the reach of the sun, there exist ecosystems of incredible richness. These are the deep-sea hydrothermal vents, or black smokers. They are volcanic fissures in the sea floor that spew out a superheated, mineral-rich soup from the planet's interior, and clustered around these vents, life thrives, powered not by sunlight, but by the chemical energy of the vents themselves, a process called chemosynthesis. The conditions we believe to exist at the bottom of Europa's and Enceladus's hidden oceans are almost a perfect parallel to the very environments where many scientists believe life on Earth may have first begun. It is entirely plausible that similar ecosystems could be thriving right now, at this very moment, in the silent, dark, and deep oceans of these distant moons. The existence of these hidden oceans dramatically impacts the Fermi paradox. The classical habitable zone is a narrow band around a star where liquid water can exist on a planet's surface. But these moons prove that another, vaster habitable zone exists, powered by tidal heating. This means that almost every gas giant in the galaxy could, in theory, host a retinue of life-bearing ocean moons. The number of potential homes for life in the galaxy is not just billions. It may be hundreds of billions, or even trillions. This makes the silence of the universe even more profound, even more deafening. If the conditions for life are this common, even in our own backyard, then where is everybody? The paradox only deepens. The dark hidden oceans of Europa and Enceladus may be the most promising cradles for life in our entire solar system. A powerful reminder that habitable zones are not just about a star's warmth, but both of these worlds are based on a familiar, life-giving ingredient, water. Water of a moon that is even stranger. A world where the temperature is so cold that water is as hard as granite, and where the rain, the rivers, and the vast dark seas are made not of water but of liquid natural gas. Our journey now takes us to the most alien and eerily Earth-like world in our solar system, Saturn's great orange hazy moon, Titan. The dark hidden oceans of Europa and Enceladus may represent the most promising cradles for life, as we know it in our entire solar system. They are a powerful and awe-inspiring reminder that the requirements for life are not just about a star's gentle warmth, but can be generated by the internal gravitational energy of a world itself. But both of these potentially life-bearing worlds are based on a familiar, life-giving, and perhaps a deeply limiting ingredient, is water. What then of a world that is even stranger? A moon orbiting a gas giant so far from the sun that the temperature is a mind-numbing minus 180 degrees Celsius. A temperature so profoundly cold that water is no longer a liquid or even a soft ice, but is transformed into a mineral as hard and as geologically inert as granite. A world where the rain, the rivers, the lakes, and the vast dark seas are made not of water at all, but of liquid methane and ethane, the components of liquid natural gas. Our journey now takes us to the most bizarre, the most alien, and in some ways the most eerily and unsettlingly Earth-like world in our entire solar system, Saturn's great orange hazy moon, Titan. For centuries, Titan was a profound mystery, a large featureless orange orb, shrouded in an atmosphere so thick and so hazy that its surface was completely invisible to our telescopes. It was the only moon in our solar system to possess such a substantial atmosphere, a thick, nitrogen-rich smog, denser even than our own air on Earth. In 2005, after a 7-year journey across the solar system, the Cassini spacecraft released a small disc-shaped probe named Huygens, which began a slow 2.5-hour descent through the orange clouds. As it fell, its cameras began to reveal a world that was both shockingly familiar and profoundly alien. It did not see a cratered, dead world. It saw a landscape that had been sculpted by the unmistakable hand of liquid. The probe sent back breathtaking images of branching river channels, of vast dark plains that looked like dry seabeds, and of coastlines and deltas. When the probe finally touched down, it did not land with a sharp crack on solid ice. It landed with a dull, damp thud, in a material that had the consistency of wet sand, a soil saturated with liquid hydrocarbons. For the first and only time in our history, we had landed a craft on the surface of a moon in the outer solar system, and the world it revealed was a dark, frozen, and distorted mirror of our own. Titan is the only other world in our solar system that has a stable, active liquid cycle, a weather system with clouds, rain, rivers, and seas. But on this world, the substance that plays the role of water is methane. In the profound cold of the outer solar system, a complete alien water cycle dominates the moon's geology. The faint, distant sunlight is just strong enough to cause methane to evaporate from the vast polar seas, forming thick clouds. These clouds then drift across the hazy orange sky, eventually releasing their burden as a slow, drizzling rain of liquid methane. This methane rain, falling for millions of years, has carved intricate river valleys into the moon's icy bedrock, flowing down from the highlands and collecting in the vast, dark, placid lakes and seas near the moon's poles. The entire landscape is a testament to this alien hydrology. The mountains are not made of silicate rock, but of solid water ice, frozen as hard as granite. The vast windswept dunes that cover much of the moon's equatorial regions are not made of sand, but of solid frozen organic hydrocarbon particles that fall from the sky like a constant, gentle, chemical snow. The most spectacular and mysterious features of this alien world are its great northern seas, colossal bodies of liquid hydrocarbon, each one larger than the Great Lakes of North America. Names like Kraken Mare and Ligeia Mare mark the maps of this distant moon. The Cassini spacecraft, using its powerful radar instruments to pierce the atmospheric haze, was able to map these seas in stunning detail. They are not blue like our oceans. they would appear as vast, still, and almost perfectly black mirrors, reflecting the dim, hazy orange sky above. It is in these dark, cold, and placid seas of liquid natural gas that the most profound and mind-bending alien fact about Titan may be hiding. Could life exist here? If it does, it would have to be life, but not as we know it. The chemistry of life on Earth is based on liquid water. Our very cells are protected by a lipid bilayer membrane, a wall of fatty molecules that can only function in a water-based environment. In the cryogenic liquid methane seas of Titan, such a membrane would freeze solid and shatter. But theoretical astrobiologists have proposed a stunning alternative. They have designed on paper a hypothetical cell membrane that could function perfectly in liquid methane. It is called an azotosome. It would not be made of the phospholipids we use, but of small nitrogen-based organic compounds that are known to be abundant in Titan's atmosphere. These molecules could, in theory, self-assemble into a membrane that is both flexible and stable in the extreme cold. This is a scientifically plausible, theoretical blueprint for a truly alien cell. The possibility of life on Titan has a profound impact on the Fermi paradox. It shatters our carbon chauvinism and suggests that life doesn't even need liquid water to exist. This would mean that the number of habitable worlds in the galaxy is not just the number of Earth-like planets in the Goldilocks zone, but could also include the trillions of icy worlds with hydrocarbon chemistry. This makes the silence of the universe even more mysterious. If the potential homes for life are this abundant and this varied, then where is everybody? This breathtaking theory of methane-based life is more than just speculation. It has made a specific testable prediction. If a methane-based life form were to exist on Titan, its metabolism would likely consume acetylene, which falls from the atmosphere onto the surface, and it would breathe hydrogen gas from the atmosphere. When the Cassini and Huygens probes analyzed Titan's chemistry, they found two profound and unexplained anomalies. First, the acetylene that should be constantly raining down and coating the surface seems to be missing, as if something is consuming it. Second, the hydrogen gas in the atmosphere is mysteriously disappearing at the surface, as if something is breathing it. These anomalies are a perfect match for the predicted biosignatures of this hypothetical methane-based life. While this is not definitive proof, it is a deeply intriguing and powerful clue. The search for this shadow biosphere, this second independent genesis of life in our own solar system, is now one of the highest priorities for NASA. The upcoming Dragonfly mission will send a nuclear-powered, car-sized quadcopter drone to fly through Titan's thick atmosphere, landing in multiple locations to sample its organic sand dunes and the shores of its methane lakes, directly searching for the chemical evidence of a life that is truly and profoundly alien. The chilling alien familiarity of Titan forces us to confront the possibility of a second independent genesis of life within our own solar system, a shadow biosphere built on a completely different chemical foundation. Its dark methane seas may hold the most profound biological secret in the universe. But all of these potential havens for life, Mars, Venus, Europa, Enceladus, and Titan, are here in our own cosmic backyard. What of the worlds beyond? The thousands of exoplanets we have now discovered. The search for an answer to the Great Silence now takes us back out into the interstellar darkness, to a distant star that flickers and dims for no known reason. A star that may be the home not of a planet with life, but of a machine built by it. A structure so vast it is drinking the light of its own sun. We must now investigate the strange and unsettling mystery of Tabby's star. The chilling alien familiarity of Titan forces us to confront the staggering possibility of a second independent genesis of life within our own solar system. A shadow biosphere built on a completely different chemical foundation. Its dark methane seas may hold the most profound biological secret in the entire universe. But all of these potential havens for life, Mars, Venus, Europa, Enceladus, and Titan, are here in our own cosmic backyard, a collection of strange but fundamentally local possibilities. What of the worlds beyond? The thousands upon thousands of exoplanets we have now discovered, orbiting the countless other suns in our galaxy. The search for an answer to the great silence now takes us back out into the interstellar darkness, to a distant star that flickers and dims for no known natural reason. A star that may be the home not of a planet with life, but of a machine built by it. A structure so vast it is drinking the light of its own sun. We must now investigate the strange and deeply unsettling mystery of Tabby's star. In the vast, silent archives of data collected by the Kepler Space Telescope, a digital library containing the light from over 150,000 stars. One star behaved in a way that was considered physically impossible. This star, an otherwise unremarkable F-type sun designated KIC 8462852, began to flicker. It was not the gentle, periodic, and tiny dip in light that would signify a transiting planet. It was a series of bizarre, profoundly deep, and completely chaotic eclipses. The star's light would at times dim by a staggering 22%, an amount that would require an object 1,000 times the area of the planet Jupiter to block it. These colossal dimming events would last for days, and sometimes even weeks at a time, and they followed no discernible rhythm or pattern. The scientific community, upon the announcement of this discovery by a team of citizen scientists in the Planet Hunters Project, was thrown into a state of profound and excited confusion. Every known natural explanation was proposed, and every single one was systematically found wanting. Perhaps it was a vast disintegrating swarm of comets, but a swarm large enough to block that much light would be shedding an immense amount of dust, which would be heated by the star and would glow brilliantly in the infrared spectrum. Our infrared telescopes looked at the star, now known as Tabby's star, and saw nothing. The system was cold. Perhaps it was the result of a catastrophic planetary collision. But again, such a cataclysm would be a hot, messy, and spectacular event, and the resulting debris cloud should glow brightly with heat. The system was dark. Perhaps the star itself was just intrinsically and bizarrely variable, but detailed analysis of its light showed that the star itself was a stable, mature, and perfectly normal F-type sun, with absolutely no reason to be behaving so erratically. One by one, every natural explanation was shown to be either physically impossible or statistically so improbable as to be effectively impossible. The data was a perfect and deeply unsettling mystery. It was in this vacuum of natural explanations that the astronomer Jason Wright and his colleagues at Penn State University proposed an explanation that was both perfectly logical and deeply terrifying. They published a paper suggesting that the bizarre, chaotic light curve of Tabby's star was consistent with the transit of an alien megastructure. Specifically, a Dyson swarm, a vast orbiting constellation of artificial habitats and colossal solar energy collectors, built by a hyper-advanced Type II civilization to capture the energy of their parent star. The strange aperiodic dimming was caused by these massive, city-sized or continent-sized structures, along with their own vast fields of construction debris, passing in front of the star as they moved along their individual orbits. This was not a message. It was not a beacon. It was simply the evidence of a civilization so far beyond our own that its routine industrial activity is visible across 1,000 light-years of space. This is a potential and profound answer to the Fermi paradox. Where is everybody? They are here, or at least their engineering is. A Dyson swarm would be the first observable evidence of a Kardashev Type II civilization. But this only serves to deepen the paradox. If such colossal and presumably long-lasting structures exist, why is Tabby's star the only one we have ever found? And more importantly, if a civilization this advanced exists, why is it so quiet? The silence from the star is the most terrifying part of this entire mystery. In the years since its discovery, the SETI Institute and other organizations have pointed their most sensitive radio telescopes at this star, listening with incredible patience for any hint of a deliberate signal, any stray communication, any leak of radio traffic. They have found nothing, only a profound, perfect, and deeply unsettling silence. This leaves us with a gallery of horrifying and unanswerable questions. Are we witnessing a civilization in the process of building its great work? A civilization so advanced it has moved beyond primitive radio and communicates in a way we cannot detect, perhaps with lasers or neutrinos? Or are we seeing the derelict, silent ruin of a civilization that died out millions of years ago, its great work now a ghost, a celestial tombstone, orbiting the dead star of its long-extinct creators? The unresolved mystery of Tabby's star leaves us staring at the ghost of a potential intelligence, a technological enigma that may never be solved. It is a perfect, and perhaps the ultimate, solution to the Fermi paradox. A civilization so advanced its presence is only detectable by the shadow it casts. A society so alien it is completely and utterly silent. The crypto-terrestrial hypothesis is the ultimate paranoid fantasy. The final chilling thought that the monsters are not in the sky, but are right here beside us, hidden in the dark. It is an idea that is almost certainly untrue, and yet, like all the other possibilities we have explored, it is born from a persistent and unexplained gap in our own knowledge. We have explored the great voids of space and the deep chasms of time in our search for answers to the Fermi paradox. But all of these theories share one thing in common. They assume that our reality, our physical universe, is the one true and fundamental stage upon which all of these dramas play out. What if that final assumption is the greatest mistake of all? The search for the zookeeper and the reason for our cosmic quarantine now takes us to its most extreme, most bizarre, and most philosophically unsettling conclusion: the simulation argument. This idea, popularized by the philosopher Nick Bostrom, is a simple but devastatingly powerful piece of statistical logic. It begins with a simple premise. Any civilization that becomes sufficiently advanced will almost certainly develop the computational power to create perfectly realistic simulations of their own ancestors, complete with conscious beings who do not know they are simulated. An advanced civilization would likely run not just one, but billions or even trillions of these ancestor simulations. If this is true, then the number of simulated conscious beings living inside these countless programs would eventually vastly outnumber the number of real biological beings in the one true base reality. Given this, the simple, cold, statistical probability is that we are not the one real civilization. We are one of the trillions of simulated ones. The crazy alien fact here is that our entire cosmos, from the Big Bang to this present moment, from the farthest quasar to the neurons firing in your own brain as you process this thought, is a piece of code, a program running on a colossal computer, built by a predecessor civilization in a higher level of reality. In this scenario, the zookeepers we have been searching for are our creators, our programmers. The great silence of the Fermi paradox is not a mystery. It is a feature of the program. The universe is quiet because it was designed to be quiet, perhaps to allow our own simulated civilization to develop without the contaminating influence of knowing the true nature of its own reality. The laws of physics are not eternal truths. They are the lines of code that govern the simulation's operating system. The UFDs in our skies might be glitches in the matrix, or perhaps they are the cursors of the programmers, the administrators of the simulation, dipping in to observe or to modify their experiment. The simulation hypothesis is the final, unprovable, and perhaps the most terrifying thought of all, that the search for the zookeeper may require not a telescope but an escape key. It suggests the great silence is simply the sound of a program running perfectly, and it leaves us with the ultimate and most personal question. In a universe that may be a grand and beautiful illusion, what is the nature of the dreamer?